Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Bates Nursery Botanical Boot Camp. My name is Adam Chapman. I will be talking about edible landscapes. So just in general, some things to think about. If you have a yard or a situation that is a lot of shade, you're probably not going to do very well with edibles. Most of them, if not all of them, need at least half a day of sun to do well, and full sun to really thrive. So you'll need to think about the sunniest parts of your yard to do some of the things that I'll be talking about today. So you can think about it in terms of shrubs, trees, and vines. I'm primarily going to be talking about those things, not really vegetables or which can be used as in some ornamental capacities, like with the cabbage and the kale and things like that, and the lettuces. Some of those will have some nice color to them, but primarily I'm going to be talking about using things that will give you some ornamental value as well as being able to harvest some kind of fruit. So probably the easiest to grow plant here in Tennessee will be blueberries. And over the last several years, there have been many varieties that have come out that are better for smaller gardens. A lot of folks nowadays don't have a very big yard, and even don't have much of a yard at all. So over the last, I would say 10 years to 15 years, have been some really nice varieties come out that stay small and do well in containers even, or even better will be in the ground. But so I'll go over those here real quick. This is one of the newer varieties, Southern Bluebell. I believe this is a southern low bush variety, so it's only going to get about 2 to 3 feet tall. The berries are going to be a little smaller, probably the size of a dime or smaller, but very, very tasty. What's great about blueberries is they have a great fall color. And as I said, they're very tough. You could use them as foundation planting, you can use them as a hedge. So they'll fit in quite a lot of places, and in this variety in particular, you could use it as a container plant as well if you want to put it on the patio or the porch or something like that. Now, also in general, when talking about blueberries, they are acid loving, so you will need to use some kind of fertilizer that has sulfur in it, which will lower the pH. So one that we carry all year round is Hollytone. I use this at my house for my blueberries. It does very well in fertilizing and keeping the pH to a level that they like, which is somewhere around 5.5. So now some other varieties of blueberries I have. So if you're looking for a larger hedge, you can use what are called rabbit eye varieties, which is what this is. This is a Tiff Blue blueberry. I have this one at my house, and it is probably 7 foot tall. It's probably taller than me right now. So you could use this even as a screening hedge if you wanted to at the edge of your property, or just in general, just as a nice plant to put a line of them out in the yard somewhere. Once again, the fall color is amazing, so you do get year-round interest with the blueberries. It's kind of looks like they're on fire, red, orange, fall color. The berries on the Tiff Blue and all of the rabbit eye varieties are quite large. They can be almost the size of a quarter, probably more like nickel size. But another thing to think about with blueberries is the fruit does not ripen once it's been picked. So unlike with a tomato that has been just turning red, you could pick it and it would it would ripen. With blueberries, they need to ripen on the plant. So, and one tip you can use if you have some larger plants and it's just taking a while to pick them all, you can lay down a tarp underneath it and just shake the plant, and the ripe berries will fall off. So that's a pretty easy way to harvest. One very interesting and cool variety and large growing as well is pink lemonade, and the berries will be pink colored, a bright pink color when they're ready to harvest. So it's a really good, has really good flavor, it does really well. So it's a great variety if you've got the room for it. So another kind of smaller variety here is pink icicle, or pink icing, I should say. And you can see the, and actually most blueberries will do this, maybe not quite to this effect, but you can see the kind of pinkish peach color new growth on here. So you'll get that in the spring and then throughout the summer as it flushes new growth, as well as the berries, and then the fall color as well. So I believe that's all of the blueberry varieties I have. So as far as easy growing shrubs that you can actually get a harvest on, blueberries are one of the best things that you can do, and the easiest. Now I'll kind of go into raspberries and blackberries, and those are kind of, they grow, they're not really vining, they're a more of a thick stalk that comes out of the ground, and when it gets fruit on it, it can get heavy and kind of fall over. But once again, these are going to be full sun preferably, but they can grow with some shade. They do have a pretty nice fall color. It doesn't usually last very long. It's kind of an orange yellow fall color. This particular variety of raspberry is great for containers. It's raspberry shortcake, stays pretty small, only about 2 feet tall or so. Whereas something like a heritage raspberry, which is probably one of the better ones for our area, is going to get 5 or 6 feet tall. With its canes will get that tall. So now as far as the pH goes for these guys, they don't really care so much. I mean, as long as it's not I would say probably 6.5 to neutral is fine with these guys. So you can just use a general fertilizer like Plant Tone, or just really anything that you've got. And if your soil is not great for any of these, you can get really good soil amendment like we've got here. The landscape mix that we have is probably the best to mix with your soil. Or you can use the garden blend just to mix in and as well. So now I believe I do have a blackberry somewhere. Yeah. So this is Arapaho, which is a thornless variety. So nowadays there's a lot of really nice thornless varieties of both of these, which I believe raspberry shortcake is also thornless. So that's what a lot of people have an issue with blackberries and raspberries. So with these thornless varieties, you can put them, say in a corner of the house if you want to, that you just want to put them there. That's kind of where I've got my raspberries at. And there's another variety called black satin as well that's fruitless. It has really huge, nice sweet fruit. So blackberries and raspberries I kind of think of as a either a filler plant, or if you're using it in the landscape, either a filler plant or just along the edge of the property, or edge of the wood line, or whatever, if you're near some woods. So and they'll do very well with that. So now also got a new variety here of fig. It's called Olympian. and it's one of the most cold hardy varieties that we have. Now it will still die back, so no fig is going to be completely hardy here as far as keeping the stems and stuff over the winter. So, but in the ground they'll come back and just be a nice big shrub every year. So, and that's, you know, kind of where you would want to plant this would be, you know, you could use it as an accent plant in your beds because it's going to get some size to it. It's got really unique leaves on it. Fall color is not, I mean, I think it's an orange yellow, and you'll get fruit towards the end of the summer with these guys. So you could also grow them in containers, or you have to move them inside. But I don't think they would survive most winters here in a container outside. So there's also brown turkey, there's Chicago hardy, there's all kinds of varieties now that do well here. So and as far as pH goes, I don't think they have any kind of special needs, just, you know, keep it around 6.5 or so. So now if you have, say, a trellis or a fence or something that you're thinking about putting a vine on or something but you want to also get something out of it, muscadine grapes are a great option. So this is one called Scuppernong, which is a kind of a copper colored fruit. Now with muscadines you need 2 varieties. Ideally, the one that we sell as a pollinator most commonly is one called Carlos, and that would pollinate this one. And they're going to grow really fast and have very long runners, probably, you know, 10, 15 foot long runners, and they don't have as bad of disease issues as the European grapes do, so they're a lot easier to grow, a lot easier to get fruit on. So that's what I would recommend if you've got either a chain link fence or something you want to cover up, or if you just got a trellis you want to grow something on. This would be a great option for that. Also, for all you beer lovers out there, there's hops, which you can grow on a trellis or a fence. The way they usually grow it in the Northwest is on, they use metal wire, but you can grow it on a trellis. I have mine on a trellis at the house. So there's a variety called Aurea, which is a golden hops. It probably has the most ornamental value, but they'll have hop cones in the late summer, early fall, so which you can use to make beer at your house if you're a home brewer. So now going into the area of trees, right behind me I have my favorite tree. This is Autumn Brilliant Serviceberry. I have 4 of these at the house. They have beautiful fall color. Not a very big tree, maybe 15 foot or so. So you could put it out in the yard if you wanted to. You could also use it as a focal point near the house, which is I've done it both ways. So they'll have kind of a reddish purple fruit in the spring after they bloom white in the early spring. Fall color is a brilliant orange red, and just a really cool, and they're native too, so it's a really cool tree. Now this is a single trunk variety. In nature they'll be multi-trunk, so that I have a single trunk and I also have several multi-trunks at my house. So one thing that you will have to deal with is birds. The birds will try to get the berries before you do. And that's the same way with really any of these fruiting plants. You're going to have critters trying to get the stuff before you. So there are ways you can use netting if your plants are small enough. There's also repellents you can use. I've found that really probably the best way is just to plant more plants so that you can have some and the birds can have some. So instead of having to fight them all the time. Now another tree that this could actually be used as a shade tree. I've got this right here. This is pecan tree. This is a variety called Sumner. Pecan trees get fairly large enough to, I would consider them a shade tree, like 50 foot, 60 foot tall here in Tennessee. So now you will have to have more than one variety. The same variety will not pollinate itself, so you'll need at least 2 trees. Now it would probably be several years, a tree this size would be several years before you would have any kind of crop on it. So kind of plan ahead in that regard, but really great tree to plant if you if you need a shade tree or 2 and want to harvest something as well. So now more of an ornamental tree would be patio peach. This guy stays very small. As far as fruiting trees go, it only gets about 6 or 7 feet tall and wide. This variety is called Bonanza, which has burgundy leaves in the spring. So you could also use this near the house as a focal point, or just a plant of interest, and also get peaches in the summer. Now they're not very big, and the fruit, the flesh is not as much as you would get on a, say, an Alberta or Bella Georgia or something like that, but it's definitely edible and tastes great. So that's another way to get interest as well as being able to harvest something. So and as far as more traditional fruit trees, I've got an apple tree here. This is Honeycrisp, and we carry all kinds of varieties: apples, pears, peaches, plums. But probably the easiest fruit tree to grow here is going to be pears. They are the easiest to grow, and then probably apples, and then peaches and plums, and then cherries are the hardest. So now we do recommend that you have a pollinator for apples and pears. It just depends on which varieties you get. Now, as far as a landscape use for these, you can use them as because they do have flowers in the spring, so they do have an ornamental quality to them. So you could use them as just a small blooming tree in the yard, and then enjoy the fruit that you get later in the year. So and that's the case with any of them. Now, as far as cherries go, I believe I have a question here about cherries. Kelly Campbell asked, I'd like to get information about cornelian cherry trees from Middle Tennessee. And they are really hard to find here. No cherries do great here. So typically what we carry are, the best variety is Montmorency. That's going to be a tart cherry, because there's tart and sweet cherries. The tart cherries do the best here. The sweet cherries do the worst. So that's probably why you can't find them, honestly, is because they don't do as well here. And another question here. So I haven't really talked about citrus or any of those, because as far as using them in the landscape, they would exclusively have to be in a container, because they would not live over the winter here. But so Joanna Harris asked, I have lemon lime tree in pots right now. Would I need to put them in the garage? Yes, you need to put them somewhere that's going to be protected from cold weather. Actually, preferably would be somewhere where they also get light. So probably in the house would be better, near a window. And I plan to put them in the ground in the spring so they can continue to grow. That I would not do. I would not advise doing that, because you're going to have to dig them back up and put them in a pot and bring them in. Or alternatively, if you wanted to expend more work, you could build a structure around them. I've seen a few people do that. So, but as far as citrus goes, none of them are hardy here. None of the ones that are going to have any kind of fruit that you would want. So you want to make sure that they're either in containers and you can move them, or in some kind of structure where you're not going to move them and they're going to have protection over the winter from the cold. So now, one thing that I didn't go over with the fruit trees is tree tone, in addition to the landscape mix that we sell here, the earth mix landscape blend. That's what I would recommend for fertilizing and amending the soil for any of the fruit trees, or even the pecan tree. Now, one thing that I will go over as well is particularly growing fruit trees. I've had blueberries for 15 years, and I've never had to spray them for anything. So that's one of the other reasons why I usually promote them heavily, because that's how easy they are to grow. If you're growing fruit trees, you are going to have disease issues and insect issues. Really, during the growing season, there's really only one or two products you can use for insect control that I would consider organic. Really, the best thing is to, in the wintertime, spray your fruit trees with dormant oil. So this is when there's no leaves. You can do it. You can do it January, February. That's fine. And what that does is it coats the stems and the trunk. And if there's any insect eggs or disease parts that are overwintering on the tree, that will smother them and kill them. So also in the winter, you can rake up all the leaves that have fallen off and bag those up and get them out of the way, or burn them. And that will keep you from having this, because the diseases will also overwinter on the dead foliage. So get that out of there. And then when you have bud break, or when things start growing, that's when you want to get on a more rigid spraying regimen. So one of the best sprays for just disease control is going to be copper fungicide. Now this is the wuttable powder form. You can get the liquid concentrate in spray, and this will help to keep down quite a few common diseases that you get here in Tennessee. So black spot and powdery mildew, things like that. Now we also have orchard spray, which is convenient because it has fungicide and insecticide in the same spray. So this is what most people use to spray. So the inevitable question is, well, when do I spray? What time do I spray? So you don't want to spray while they are in bloom, because you'll affect the pollinators. So you want to spray right as the buds are forming and breaking, and then stop when they're in bloom. And then once they're done blooming and you can see that fruit is being set, you can start spraying every 10 to 14 days until harvest. And that'll help to keep a lot of the diseases and insects down. So you don't have to spray, but if you don't, particularly with the fruit trees, you will have disease and insect issues. So I think that's everything I have here. So if I have any other questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
We have someone asking, do you carry old ground pine bark for mulching blueberries?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we carry several different pine mulches, and that's what I use. I use shredded pine. Now, you are on the right track. That will help lower the pH of your soil. However, the mulches take a lot longer. You're looking at years of use to bring the pH down enough for the blueberries to notice. So while I still do recommend using pine mulch for blueberries, I would also still use the fertilizer that has sulfur in it, just because it's going to keep the pH lower and it's going to work a lot faster. So.
We have another question. When is the best time to plant blueberry bushes or fruit trees?
Well, in general, I recommend, fall is probably the best time to plant just about anything. Now, in Tennessee, you can plant any time. I mean, the ground is almost never frozen, so you're always able to plant, and that's just a matter of finding the plant material at that point. So now I have at least 7 or 8 blueberries. I've planted them at all different times of the year, but simply for just the sake of you not having to go out and water so much, it's really the best time is to plant in the fall, because you can put them in the ground, water them while it's still warm in the fall, and then when it goes in the wintertime, we usually get enough rainfall and they're dormant, so there's almost no watering involved over the winter. And then by the time you get through spring, the roots are established, so it's an established plant and you're good to go. So at that point, it's just a yearly application of the Hollytone, and that's what I do. Every spring I put Hollytone on them. That's pretty much it. So.
Great. Any particular fertilizer that you'd recommend for serviceberry?
Serviceberries are not, they don't really care as far as the pH, so the tree tone would be great, or plant tone. And then, like I said, when you're planting them, either use the landscape blend, the earth mix landscape blend, or the garden blend. So, yeah. Well, I mean, what I would say, in closing is, it would be, while you certainly could landscape your whole landscape with edibles. I mean, it's possible. Really, for me, it's kind of a nice addition or augmenting the landscape with edibles, and it's very easy to do. So, anything else?
No, I'm not seeing any more questions.
Okay.
So I think we're good.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining me today. Have a great rest of the day.